Purposely. Your life, God's purpose. Listen at purposely.com.
Do you ever have one of those moments when you felt really confident at the time, only to end up humiliated? I think we all do. Hey, this is Jen. You're listening to the Bible for Busy People podcast. And there are phrases for that, like having egg on your face, or having to come back later and eat crow, to lose face, to have put your foot in it, or to eat humble pie. Big or small, nobody likes those moments. I can't even imagine how painful they must have felt in front of the Son of God. This week, we're talking about redemption arc stories, and of course, I thought of Simon Peter. Our good friend Simon Peter went through this situation a few times. We talked about a couple of those moments for him last week, and I mentioned that I don't mean to pick at him. I appreciate how relatable he is. He's like the guy who says the thing that everybody else is thinking, but because he's brave enough to say it, he also sometimes has to take the fall that comes afterwards when he isn't right. Today we're talking about a moment where Peter was full of confidence, fell short, and then made a comeback. The first part takes place at the Last Supper, Jesus' Passover meal with his disciples. We're reading in Luke 22, starting in verse 24. A dispute also arose among them as to which of them was considered to be the greatest. Jesus said to them, "The kings of the Gentiles lord it over them, and those who exercise authority over them call themselves benefactors. But you are not to be like that. Instead, the greatest among you should be like the youngest, and the one who rules like the one who serves. For who is greater, the one who is at the table or the one who serves? Is it not the one who is at the table? But I am among you as one who serves. You are those who have stood by me in my trials, and I confer on you a kingdom, just as my Father conferred one on me, so that you may eat and drink at my table in my kingdom and sit on thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel. Simon, Simon, Satan has asked to sift all of you as wheat. But I have prayed for you, Simon, that your faith may not fail. And when you have turned back, strengthen your brothers." But he replied, "Lord, I am ready to go with you to prison and to death." Jesus answered, "I tell you, Peter, before the rooster crows today, you will deny 3 times that you know me." Jesus addressed the disciples' squabbling with a challenge to empire, literally calling out the practices of those who had oppressed Israel. Jesus was saying, don't be like them. This probably would have been considered treasonous, but the way of Christ is always opposed to oppression and control and self-glory. It is all about humility, caring for others, and the glory of God. The proud will be humbled, and the humble will be exalted. Now, Bible translations are constantly being updated. I have only ever seen verse 31 as written, "sift you as wheat," implying Simon Peter alone. But this translation, and the other ones I looked up, including the Greek, say you all. Still, Simon Peter was singled out like he had been previously, like when Jesus told him he had the keys to the kingdom, and then a few sentences later called him Satan. I wonder if he was in the middle of this debate about who was the greatest. But Jesus also singled him out as praying for him specifically to lead the others back. Notice Jesus' return to calling Peter Simon again, not just once, but twice. In case you don't know about wheat, which I didn't, to sift wheat is to crush and remove the chaff from the edible grain. The process involves beating and then throwing to the wind the wheat to remove the chaff. Now we're skipping down to Luke 22, verse 54, which says, "Then, seizing him, they led him away and took him into the house of the high priest." This is Jesus. Peter followed at a distance. And when some there had kindled a fire in the middle of the courtyard and had sat down together, Peter sat down with them. A servant girl saw him seated there in the firelight. She looked closely at him and said, "This man was with him." But he denied it. "Woman, I don't know him," he said. A little later, someone else saw him and said, "You are also one of them." "Man, I am not," Peter replied. About an hour later, another asserted, "Certainly this fellow was with him, for he is a Galilean." Peter replied, "Man, I don't know what you're talking about." Just as he was speaking, the rooster crowed. The Lord turned and looked straight at Peter. Then Peter remembered the word the Lord had spoken to him. "Before the rooster crows today, you will disown me 3 times. And he went outside and wept bitterly. Even Peter's actions here were to distance and protect himself, not just what he said. In the situation, I get it. Anyone associated with Jesus would have potentially been subject to a similar fate. He was legitimately scared. But I also wonder if Peter hadn't denied Jesus, would he have lived to lead the disciples and the first century church? It would seem like it had to happen this way. God's power goes beyond our understanding, and somehow even our mistakes can fit the plan. The Enduring Word Commentary says that the Greek word for looked here, the way Jesus looked at Peter, implies love and concern. Peter was distressed at his mistakes, but he didn't walk away from God because of it, which led to a complete turnaround, as we see in Acts chapter 22, where he gives a whole sermon to a crowd of people. Some of those people had condemned Jesus to death. And he speaks intelligently, eloquently, and clearly. You can go back and read that passage later. It's Acts 2:22 through 41. But the Peter who had hidden and blended in and denied Jesus stood before the people and preached about Jesus with eloquence and theological understanding and biblical interpretation. This same unschooled, ordinary fisherman was changed by Jesus' resurrection and the arrival of the Holy Spirit. And guess what? We have access to that same transformative power. Now, what we know about Simon Peter, there are testimonies that say that he was even crucified in Rome later in life. He became a martyr. Tradition says he was crucified upside down, but we don't know for sure. But the very thing that Peter was afraid of had no power over him anymore. We've all had ups and downs in our joy and motivation for God. We have all battled fear or denied God in various ways, but God doesn't leave us, nor do our defeats disqualify us for God's purpose for our lives. So what comeback or full circle stories have happened in your life? I'll leave you with that. Let's chat again tomorrow.
Thank you for listening to The Bible for Busy People. If you need prayer or want to go deeper in your faith, visit our show notes. Will you take a moment to share with a friend and leave a review? It helps the Bible get into even more people's minds and hearts. Find more podcasts that will recharge you at purposely.com.